Okay, I am going to get started here. We do have a small group tonight, but we'll go through and run through just like we always do. I wanted to thank you tonight for coming and joining us for the Scramble Pairings course, and I'll go over to the course here. The tournament that I've created for this one is actually called Scramble Pairings, so it should be easy to remember. And basically what Scramble Pairings are, it's kind of a new system that we created that we've had kind of in place for about a year. And what it does is it kind of creates real competitive, evenly matched matchups when you don't need traditional brackets. So if you think of the old note card system where you're matching up wrestlers for youth or middle school or JV situations, this is our way of doing this electronically. You take the bias out that we all have as coaches, and you get really good quality matchups. So I'll get right to it here. Again, tournament is Scramble Pairings. You, of course, would have a different name for your tournament. But basically what we have is, I just want to kind of show you quick the setup. I have a bunch of wrestlers in this tournament. So if I go to my wrestlers page, you'll see that I have a bunch of wrestlers in here. And I also have a group or a grade that they're in, and I have their actual weight and their team. I also have a separation criteria, which is kind of a skill level that I'll be using. And so the setup for Scramble Pairings, if you order a Scramble Paired event, these things will already be checked or marked off for you, but you just want to make sure that these things are done. I will also point out at this point that in the to-do list, once you flip the setting for Scramble Pairings, you'll notice that the to-do list is specific to this type of tournament, which is a Scramble Paired event. But a couple of items, I go to Setup, and I come to my settings page, and this is always where you want to make sure that you have everything set up correctly. And there's a couple things we want to make sure that are marked here. If we come down here in the middle, there is an item called Use Scramble Pairings. And I went right by it. There it is. So this one that's called Use Scramble Pairings, I have it flipped to yes, but if yours isn't, you want to make sure that you have that on yes. And then the other item that I want to do, actually there's one more here before I move up too far. I want to have this one that says Allow statisticians to pre-enter actual weight. I'd like to have that one set to yes, and the reason for that is that way my statisticians can go in and they can use that actual weight. They can put it in. Instead of saying a kid's in the 100-pound weight class, we're going to say he weighs 98, and then we're going to match him up with other wrestlers who are really close to that weight. So we want to flip this one to yes, and again, I of course already have those done, but you just want to double check. And then finally, in our settings, in our fields to include up here, I want to make sure that my actual weight, my grade, and my separation criteria are marked there. And if I didn't have one of these, I could use my control key and just click on or off and then save the fields to include. So we want to make sure that actual weight, grade, and separation criteria are fields that we're including. And again, if you've ordered this as a Scramble Paired event, you would have all these things marked already. But again, good idea to come and make sure that you're set up correctly. A few other items just to note. These would be the same as in any other event. I'd want to go through and I'd want to check my deadlines, make sure that's all good to go. I've already added my teams, of course. And then in my groups and divisions, it's important in Scramble Paired events that instead of having just, say, a middle school division, and that's kind of the demo that I'm doing here tonight, it'd be like a middle school type meet. And in my case, rather than having one group called middle school, I'm going to have a 6th grade, a 7th grade, and an 8th grade. And this is the way that we can try and group 6th graders with 6th graders, 7th with 7th, 8th with 8th, or just keep them one grade apart. I can override this and say I'm going to let them wrestle anybody, but our system in this case is going to try and match up kids of equal ability and grade and weight for that matter. So make sure that in Scramble Pairings that you have one for each grade. So in the example, if you had just a JV type Scramble Pairings, you might have a 9th, a 10th, 11th, and 12th here. So again, your groups should match your grades. I could also set up my team scoring along in my setup, and then I'd also want to make sure that I have my mats added. So I come into mats, and this is going to come into play when I am assigning these bouts to mats. And I'll go through that in just a few minutes. But as just kind of a precursor here, I've already done this, and you would have already done this in adding your mats. So in my case, I'm going to use 3 mats. So I'd have 1, 2, and 3. Another item that you would have set up and this is all in my to-do list, of course, are my separation criteria. So my separation criteria, I'm using excellent, good, average, and beginner. And these, of course, are the track wrestling defaults. You could change those if you wanted to. The truth is, these work really well for most situations. What you wouldn't want to do is add some other ones in addition to these. The priorities are what our system looks at. It's going to try and keep the ones together. If it can't get ones together, it's going to look for twos. And then if it can't get twos, it's going to look for threes. So it's, these are good values to have. There are cases where you might want to use other ones, but again, for most of you, these four are going to be just fine. I would probably set up my team logins, and that's just our statisticians. I'm not going to cover that here, but you'll notice that I have that in my to-do list, and that's where I would go, and I would add statisticians, and then those coaches then could come and enter all of their wrestlers. That way, I wouldn't have to, as the tournament director, I wouldn't have to type all those names. There's other courses that kind of cover that. And then the other thing I want to do is set up a number scheme. So again, related to my mats, I have my 3 mats, but I also want to create a number scheme. And what I've done to create these schemes is just click this Add Mat Schemes button after I have my 3 mats. It's going to autofill this 1, 2, and 3. And then what I like to do, and I think this is a really good tip if for those of you out there watching this, don't do this yet. I think a really good idea is to start mat 1 with 101, mat 2 with 201, and mat 3 with 301. And of course, if I'm about 310, I'll know that I'm the 10th bout on mat 3. Or if I were about 126, I'd know that I was the 26th bout on mat 1. So again, just a little tip. Really good idea. And then, of course, I would copy this over to testing, which for this demo I already have, and you can tell because I'm on the testing site here. A couple things then that I want to do. My participants have been entered now at this point. I've kind of got all my setup. I've got my mats, got my number schemes, and I've got all my wrestlers entered into my event. And so a good thing to do right when I kind of get going, again, this would be the night of my event or the day of the event, whatever the case might be. I'm going to come into my print documents. I can do this a couple different ways. So there's a few different ways. I can go into in the registration menu. I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. In the registration menu, I could come to printing, and then I would go to my weigh-in sheet. And the weigh-in sheet is a really good tool to use for lots of different situations. But what I would do in this one is I've already got this set up. I would set this up with team, first name, last name, group, my separation criteria, which again is my skill level, and then I'd also put my actual weight. And then I'd probably sort this by team and then by name. And then if I had I'll have a page break, and then I would save that, but I've already saved it. And then if I go to view this, this is just a way for me to verify. So when the coaches come through the door, or as they walk in, I go, okay, is everything all right here? Maybe this kid weighs something different, or maybe they want to change one of their criteria, or maybe I have a grade wrong. This would be a good place to come. Make sure that coaches, that you have the right information from the coaches, and this gives the coaches one last chance to take a look. And if I do a print preview, actually what we do and what we've done in these, if I go to print and preview, this prints 1 page per team. So one team per page, I should say. So I could give that to the coach, and they could let me know if there's any changes. And then, of course, if there were any changes, I would just come into the registration menu. Might even click on teams, and let's say that Stratford, they have a wrestler that needs to get changed. I could just click on him, and maybe this wrestler weighed 110 or something like that. So I could go through and make my changes just as you would in any other type of track wrestling event. But the main point there is to make sure that when I go to my wrestler list, that all of this data that's here on these wrestlers is accurate. And that would be the case in any event. It's really important here with our Scramble parity events. So now I'm ready to create my Scramble pairings, and that's what we all are excited to learn about here tonight. So I'm just going to come into the bracketing menu, and where I'd normally either use the block bracketing or the grouping wizard, or maybe I'd build my brackets, I'm going to come down to this item called Scramble pairings. I click on that, and it opens up this Scramble pairings page. Again, if you don't see this in the bracketing menu, it's because you haven't selected it here in our settings. So make sure you have Scramble pairings set to yes. Then you'll go ahead and see that in the bracketing menu. And then there's some tolerances here. And so these are going to look similar in some ways to what you would see in the grouping wizard. But there's a few extras as well. The weight tolerance, of course, is just the same as it would be in the grouping wizard. I could change this to whatever I want. I'm going to leave it at 10. I think that's a pretty good number. I could bump it up if I wanted to widen out my my gaps here. So I could widen that out, or I could, you know, make that smaller if I wanted. You know, maybe it's younger wrestlers or something like that. My division tolerance, I'm going to leave at 1. And what this means is that I have, I'm going to have my wrestlers wrestle somebody in their own division, or one above or one below. So back on my divisions, if I'm a 7th grader, I could wrestle a 6th, 7th, or 8th grader. But if I was an 8th grader, I could only wrestle a 7th grader because I have that tolerance set to 1. I couldn't jump 2 divisions. Okay, so again, you can set that however you want. And if you're not seeing the groupings that you want, you could change that. The skill tolerance is the same type of thing. Remember, we had good, excellent, or excellent, good, average, beginner. In this case, it's going to allow me to pick, or I'm sorry, be grouped with a wrestler 1 above or 1 below me in terms of the separation criteria. Desired match count and max allowed match count, pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to set 2 for my desired. One good idea is to set the max to 1 above your desired. And what that really does is that allows some wrestlers to get an extra match in an attempt to make sure that everybody else gets 2. You do have those situations where they just don't match up right. Maybe you have some bigger kids or some smaller kids. Sometimes one up. Sometimes bumping this up 1 will help you out there. So again, I do my weight tolerance, my division, my skill, pick my match counts. If I wanted to just pair 2 teams together, I could use my control key and I could highlight just those 2. Don't have to do that. If you want all teams, of course, you would pick all teams. And then what I can do is a few different things up here. So again, those are the tolerances. You can adjust those to kind of fit your needs, or maybe your conference, maybe your your league has certain parameters they want to do, or maybe you're just kind of winging it. You want to adjust those as you see fit. And then if I click this button up here that says View Possible Pairings, this is going to show me all the possible pairings for each of these wrestlers. So if I look here, I can see that Max is a 6th grader and he's 66 pounds. He's marked as excellent. He could wrestle Kale or Corbin. But if I come down here to say like Corbin, because he is a little bigger and he is marked as good, he's got a lot more choices that our system will look at. So these are all the possible pairings. Some people will have confusion here. These aren't the pairings. These are just, if I want to look at, hey, who are all the possibilities that Eric, who's in bold, could get paired up with? Here's all the possibilities. So again, that's more of a general taking a look at who could these kids get paired with. And one other thing that you'll notice here is this number right there. Right now, this number is the number of matches that they currently are scheduled for. I haven't created anything, so everybody's going to have 0 for this bold number in parentheses. But you'll look at this, and you'll see a 0 with an exclamation mark. This is a perfect match. And what that does is that's kind of an indicator of the strength of the pairing. So a 0 is really good. A 0 with an exclamation mark is perfect. And then if you have a 1, that's pretty good. And sometimes you'll see some 2s. And those aren't as strong of matches, or matchups, I should say. So let's compare Max and Kale here. Max is an excellent with a 66-pound weight, and he's a 6th grader. Kale, of course, also a 6th grader, also excellent, and he's only 1 pound apart, which of course is within that 10%. So that's why that's a perfect pairing. We'll notice that Corbin is a little bigger, and he's 1 off in the separation criteria. So that's a 1, still a strong pairing, still probably going to be a really good match, but it's not a perfect match. So that's what those numbers are for, and you can always tell kind of, how strong, how good, how accurate those matches are. Doesn't mean you can't pair them up, even if it's not a perfect match. Again, a 1's a really good indicator. If you look through, like here's a 2, that's one that our system's probably not going to look for first, but it's still, one of those that's probably not as good of a matchup. So I take a look at all my possible pairings here. You can do that. What some people do is they go right to this auto pair button. And auto pair is exactly what it says. It's going to take a look at all the parameters you've set in here, and it's going to try and pair them up automatically. So I'm just going to do that now. I click auto pair. And now you see that quickly we've matched up all these wrestlers, and we're shooting for 2. Some of them don't have 2. Some of them only have 1. Again, a couple guys have 3. So let's take a look at what these matchups look like. Max, of course, and we kind of saw that this one was coming. He got paired up with Kale and also with Corbin. But now you see that Kale, he's only getting 1 match. So, you look at the next guy here, he's from the same team. But what I could do is I could go ahead and pair him manually. So I'd go through and look here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you how to pair those manually in just a minute. But what I want to look for is wrestlers in red. And when I get down here, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to see some wrestlers in red. It's going to be, typically either the smaller kids or the bigger kids. And here's an example. We'll look at this young man is a 7th grader, but he's 216 pounds and he's a beginner. So that's typically that type of wrestler who's, not easy to get paired up. So we're just going to keep Alex in mind because he doesn't have any matches, and I think there's probably a couple more when you get to the really big guys, sure. Especially if you have big guys from the same team. That happens, and we all know that they're there. But if I come up here, I'm going to look and I'm going to go, okay, these matchups look pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to create these selected matches. And it's going to create matches with all of these that have check marks. I click that, and you'll notice that those become bold. And all these matches that are bold, that's going to it's going to save them. Those matches are in the system. You could go ahead and say, okay, that's close enough. It's just good to go. But I would probably do a couple of things. So I'm going to look at Kale here. He's only got 1 match, and I want to make sure he gets another match. I wouldn't pair him probably with Alistair because they're from the same team, but maybe I'd pair him with Dane. And Dane, because he was a little bigger, didn't get paired with Kale. So I can just click pair next to Kale, and I'm going to come here by Dane, and I'm going to hit pair next to Dane. And now you'll see that I just forced a pairing with these 2 wrestlers. You can do that with as many as you want. I might do the same thing with Alistair here. Maybe I'd give him another match. Maybe I'd pair him with Max. Okay, and then now there it is. And then now you see that Alistair has 2. So you could go through for any of those kind of outliers, those odd situations that didn't get matched up. You could go ahead and pair those up. And of course, I would look down here for these wrestlers in red. Here's our Alex, of course, that we found. And I might say, okay, Alex, I know that this boy is quite a bit smaller, but yeah, he's tough. I'm going to give him this match. I'm going to click pair with him and pair with him. And we would go ahead and that pairing would get made. The same thing would be true if you didn't want to pair. Before you created these pairings, I could click don't pair by one wrestler and then don't pair by another, and then our system would leave it out. Maybe they're cousins, maybe they wrestle all the time. Lots of reasons why you might do that. So you can just use the pair or don't pair for those, I guess, manual situations that you want to do. So at this point, I've got all my matches created, and you'll look, I quickly paired all these matches up, okay? And so the confusion sometimes here is that, okay, some people think this is maybe a 4-man chart. And it's not a chart. Again, these are just matches that are created. So it's not a round robin. It's none of those things. Max is wrestling these 3 guys, but these 3 guys aren't all wrestling each other, okay? It's taking really, really good matchups based on the criteria you put in, okay? So the next thing I want to do is I want to assign all these to mats. So I'm going to come into my mats page, and I go there from the operating menu. You can get there lots of ways. But I have my mats here. Go to assign mats, and you'll notice that on my 3 mats, the system is looking at this, and it's taking the lowest weight class wrestlers, or pairing, then the next, then the next. So you notice it goes, littlest to biggest here, and then it jumps and goes, continues all the way down kind of through here. And then when we get back up to these big guys, and then it's going to jump back down to our little guys again. So this is probably the same guy. It might be that Max or Kale, one of those that we talked about. They have a match here, but then they're not going to have another match till down here. Again, probably a different mat. I couldn't say probably, maybe a different mat. But it's going to spread those out as best as it can. So there's quite a bit of time in between those wrestlers. And all I would do from here is save those all. These become bold, and now they're saved to those mats. So I just created my bouts. I saved them all to mats, so now I know what mats they're going to wrestle on. And then I would come in and apply my number scheme. And this will number everything really quickly too. So again, come to my operating menu, click number schemes, and then I would just apply selected schemes. And then I don't need to do anything with the frozen status. I could leave it as is. And I click continue. I just want to show you, I always like to do this on the number scheme stuff. If I go to my bout schedule, you'll see that, let me just pick mat 1 for you. So on mat 1 now, here are those bouts. There's those little guys that I talked about. Those are not numbered, and so there's really no way for us to know who's up here because they're all going to be match ID 1. I want to apply my number scheme for this reason. I hit apply selected scheme, I continue, and I apply that. And now if I come back to my bout schedule, you'll look at, if I come back to mat 1, now on mat 1 I've got bout 102 or 101, 102 right on down the line, and I know that on mat 1 I've got 37 bouts that I'll need to wrestle, and as I enter results, this will get updated. Same would go for mat 2. These are all my 200s, 37 there as well, and then mat 3. Here's all my 300s, and this one has 36. So again, really even, spreads them out right across the mats kind of evenly. So now I'm ready to go. I'm paired up. I'm assigned to mats. I've got my numbers. A couple things that I would want to print. First thing that I would want to do is print my team bout schedule. So it's really 2 documents that I'd like to print out here. And so if I go into the operating menu and I go to printing and I go to the team bout schedule, and again, these items are listed in your to-do list here. I'm not clicking on it each time, but they're definitely there for you. So this is the team bout schedule. So I'm just going to change this. Actually here, I'm going to change this group by to wrestler. And I'm going to include all teams and all groups, and then I hit go. And I want to show you what this does. And I'm going to do a print preview just because it's a little easier to see. So this document, as I do a print preview here, and I'll just make it nice and big. So what this does is on each page, it's going to give me all the DC Everest 6th graders. So here are their matches, and I think we looked at Corbin at one point. Here's Corbin's matches. He's going to be bout 229, bout 301, and bout 314. So this is going to show his mom comes over, he comes over, he knows he's bout 301, he's bout 314, and then he's bout 229. Same is true if I keep going down. There's the DC Everest 7th graders, and there's the 8th graders, and then if I come all the way, to a new team, here's the marathon 6th graders and so on. So good thing to do here is to take these, stick these all up right on the wall, and that way people can come check out. Mom knows, dad knows, the kid knows, the coaches can know, and everybody knows who's wrestling where. And again, you know what mat they're on right here too. It says right here, but it also tells you by your bout number. So again, team bout schedule, great item to print out, put up. People know where they're wrestling, and makes things go pretty smoothly. And then the next thing I'd want to do is print out my match schedule. And so if I'm on this bout schedule page, and let's say, let's do all mats, I guess, that's fine. This document is actually used for the table workers at each mat. So that way they're going to know which order the bouts are coming. They know who to call, who's on deck, things like that. Some events even use this in place of bout sheets. So I could print my bout sheets from here if I select all these. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do the print schedule. We'll note that you could also get here from this operating menu in the print items too. But in this one, there's only a couple changes that you need to make here. You don't need to do anything with these columns, but in this show bout detail, I'm just going to flip this to detail only. And that's the only thing I really need to change. Everything else looks good. And if I click go, I'm actually going to do a print preview again, just to, sometimes on the testing site, it's hard to see what's there with all that text in the background. But if I do a print preview here, I'll blow that up. So on this one, and the lines here in the print preview don't all show, but there are lines between every one of these. And basically this shows you bout 1. Here are my wrestlers. I could call these guys up. Some people, if they're not keeping track, and entering right away, they could just write the score and circle the winner here. That's what you do. And so there's a mat 1. Pick that to mat 1. My mat 2 table workers, here's how they know. They can cross them off as they go. And that's their list and order of bouts. You could give that to coaches too as well. Sometimes that's handy. But there's some other items that you could also give to coaches perhaps there too. And then if you were printing bout sheets, you could go ahead maybe you just print mat 1 first. So I could sort this. I could select all of these on mat 1, and I could hit print selected bouts. And this would be no different than how you would print for a regular tournament. But I could go ahead and print these out and send them out to the table as well. Printing one mat at a time is probably a good idea here. You get a stack, run it out to your table on mat 1, mat 2, mat 3, and so on, depending on how many mats that you have. And then what you would do then, of course, is you would enter your bout results. And most of you are going to know how to do this, but all I'm going to do is go to bout entry. I type my bout number, and let's say it's bout 103 that comes in first. I click go. Pick the winner, pick my win type, and maybe that was decision, maybe that was 3-0, and save, and I go right on from there. So basically just run through your bouts, enter them just like you normally would. I will show you just a little trick here on the testing site, which you may or may not know. If I go into the left menu and I go into operations, and again, this is just on the testing site, I click there, I do enter bouts. And then my bout numbers, I could say I want to enter bouts 101 through 125 maybe. And I enter the bouts. Now if I come back to my bout schedule, you'll see that if I go to mat 1, because I only entered, this just kind of simulated entering all of those bouts. And this is what you would see as you enter those. And then again, that's no different than what you do in a normal tournament. So that is pretty much Scramble pairings. Again, kind of a quick overview, really effective way to get really good, matchups. Basically, what we're doing here, I had a question just get texted in. So the bracket is technically, so if I'm back on my bout schedule, if I do this bracket, it's basically just a 2-man place 2. So really, it's, you're not advancing anywhere. You're just 2 wrestlers, and you're picking a winner from there. So you technically, I suppose you could print out brackets. That's really not what it's designed for, but that is how the system works. It just puts them on this 2-man place 2 bracket. So again, the idea here is just creating really strong matchups. I know we've used them here in our local area for a couple of years now, and kind of tested it out that way. And they create really strong matchups, and we've gotten a really good response. We've heard that same thing from across the country, people using these. And it creates those situations where you're pairing 2 wrestlers up and you're not trying to find 4 kids that are alike to throw in a round robin. So not that there's anything wrong with that system either, but definitely if you're looking for matchups, this is a great way to go. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open the mics back up, answer some questions. I know we had somebody join late, so if there's questions there, we can run through those. Okay, so the mics are back open. Again, I know we had one of you join a little bit late. I know you missed just the first part of that, but after we stop the recording and stuff, I can always run through a little bit of that too if you had questions. But at this point, are there any questions regarding Scramble pairings?
Yeah, this is Trent from Oregon, and we were the guys that got in late. We couldn't get it on our, we couldn't get it up the screen up on our school computer, but so we ran down. But
okay.
Can you do a 4-man round robin from a scramble pairing?
Nope. A scramble pairing is not a round robin, and again, that's some of the confusion. You could take a 4-man round robin and use our grouping wizard and pair them up in a 4-man round robin. But what scramble pairings are is it's just taking wrestlers in this scramble pairings format here, and it's looking at what this wrestler is. He's a 6th grader.
Right.
He's from here. This is his his weight and that, and it's looking for the 2 or 3 best possible pairings for him. Then it moves on to the next kid, and it looks specifically at this kid and what are the best pairings for him.
Right.
So nope, completely different thing. It's a common question. But they're 2 different animals altogether. So no, we can do that. I mean, you can obviously do that with the grouping wizard, and that's exactly what the grouping wizard does too. So nope, 2 different things there.
If we decide to, instead of doing a scramble pairings, do a 4-man round robin, from the type of tournament selection, is there a 4-man round robin tournament selection?
So if
Payback.
you're saying like if I'm in this tournament and I change my mind?
No, way before the tournament begins. If when you're starting to build the tournament.
Yeah.
Right now we're
Yep.
deciding if we're going to do a Scramble Pairings tournament or if we're going to do a 4-man round robin.
Sure. Now you just go into, and you could let us know and we could update your to-do list, but in that case, you would go through, you would pick, instead of this two-man place two, you would pick your round robin brackets here, and then you would build them with the block bracketing. That's what you would do here. And again, completely different class altogether, but you could do that within the same term. They're both open tournaments, but they're just different ways of creating matches or brackets for that matter.
Great.
If
Thank you.
that is the case, yeah, you're welcome. If that is the case and you need to change, just let us know. We can update the to-do list too, because of course we set these up so they're specific to what you're doing, but we can change those after the fact too.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now the way it sounds, this is Reesford from Appleton. The way it sounds, you can do part of it Scramble and then part of it bracketing if you wanted to. Or do you have to call you and have you set something up for that?
Yeah, you would need to do one or the other. So you would be, so it's again, you would be, so the idea behind Scramble Pairings is just these matchups with the block bracketing. These wrestlers would already be paired, and so there'd be some confliction there. So no, you probably wouldn't want to do both. You could.
Okay.
One or the other.
I like what I see. I mean, this is the same thing we do in a coach's room when we're just on paper. But
the note cards, we joke here that we've matched up note cards for a long time, and now now the other thing that this does too, and we're all guilty of it, and I have a son in this very example right here. It's hard not to take the emotion out of it. It's hard not to either overestimate or underestimate kids. Our system won't. As long as it's in. It's unbiased. It creates. And again, I will say too.
Yeah, just so the coaches are honest when they say excellent, good, and average, and sometimes they're not as honest as what they should be. But
agreed. Yep. Nope. I agree. So.
Yeah, that's all part of it. So
it sure is. So that is true. That is true. So if the data in there is not accurate, then of course the pairings won't be. But I will say, and again, I'm not saying this just to we want people. So we're wrestling guys here, and we want kids to keep wrestling, and we want more kids to wrestle. And the thing that we saw, and one of the reasons for these Scramble Pairings is when you do put kids. And I can tell you this pairing right here because I know all four of these kids.
Right.
There's one wrestler in here who is not going to like wrestling as much at the end of the day if he's in this 4-man round robin. Yeah. But if you look at him down where he's paired up, he's going to have more competitive matches in that. And again, I can tell you it's this boy right here because he's a newer wrestler. We paired this one by hand. If you remember, this was the example of how we paired him. So, but you have those situations in 4-mans too. It's sometimes hard getting those matchups for all 4 wrestlers. Where like I said, you have the one boy that goes home not enjoying it as much as you'd like him to. And our fear there was that kid might not come back and wrestle next year, and that's not what any of us want. We all work too hard to have that happen. So again, we just encourage you guys to take a look and see if this is a good option for you. Like I said, we have a lot of people that are using this and have great luck with it. So
now you talk about the 4-man, or there's a 5-man or a 6-man round robin or something like that we have in a junior high. Not the junior high, like a JV tournament.
Sure.
We could get all those names and plug it all in and come up with the same thing, just like what we're doing right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't matter what level. So this, I guess we see it most, and our intention was for those youth, middle school type situations, but JV also fits that bill. We all know that JV meets now are very seldom, 14 weights versus 14 weights kind of a thing. So if you're just pairing guys up, it's another way that you could do that. So, yep. If you don't need a champion and you don't care who, gets the blue ribbon or the big trophy, then this is a really good way to do it. So and again, competition is competition, but if you want brackets, then that's where you would go, the grouping wizard, and put them on round robin brackets. So definitely really good applications for both. This one would be if you're just looking to pair guys up.
Now, if if the athletic director at Appleton West wants to get involved with this, then he would give you a call and contract you to set this thing up and have it available for a tournament, correct?
Yeah. Well, actually, they could, but actually all they'd have to do is come right here into this register menu.
Right.
And they click register to run a tournament, and they can order it right from the website. But if they have questions, definitely let us know. We'll walk them through it and get them all set up.
Yep.
That's
that
correct.
Good.
Very good.
Well, I thank you very much for spending the time, and I've learned a lot. And
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, you bet. Well, I think I'll stop the recording now. If you need to stick around a little bit, I'd be happy to answer that. If not, I guess we're going to give it away. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and thanks a lot for joining us.
I got to get ready to take off, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
Yep.